The World Economic Forum was hosted yet again in Davos for 2024, and boy, did it get roasted. Welcome to America Uncovered. I'm Chris Chappell. So, many of you may be wondering, how do I find the energy to keep making episodes week after week, year after year? The answer is coffee. Lots of coffee. Specifically Days Coffee, the sponsor of today's episode. It's not just any coffee. It is something no other coffee in America has, which I'll explain in a bit. But first, it's that time of year again, Davos 2024. You can't start a new year without having global elites gather in Switzerland in private jets to talk about combating climate change, listening to each other blabber about lofty, vague ideas, and to meet with prostitutes. The global elites are so generous to give up time in their busy schedules for them. I wouldn't be surprised if the term globalist gone wild started trending in not safe for work websites around this time. But I'm too classy to check. For those of you who don't know, Davos is the Swiss town where the annual meeting of the World Economic Forum, or WEF, takes place. The WEF was founded by German economist Klaus Schwab. The forum engages in the foremost political, business, cultural, and other leaders of society to shape global, regional, and industry agendas. And the theme for this year is rebuilding trust, which is strange. Do people for some reason not trust globalist elites who want to run the world outside of any pesky elections? I must have missed the memo. I mean, this doesn't inspire trust? Nevertheless, some people are critical of the WEF. People like Argentina's new president, Javier Milei. This was a guy whose most recent holiday greetings was, I kid you not, Happy Holidays, and be careful not to become a communist. And someone thought it would be a good idea for him to give a speech at the WEF.
Today, I'm here to tell you that the Western world is in danger. And it is endangered because those who are supposed to have to defend the values of the West are co-opted by a vision of the world that inexorably leads to socialism and thereby to poverty. The main leaders of the Western world have abandoned the model of freedom for different versions of what we call collectivism. Thank you very much, and long live freedom. Damn it.
Wow, I have never heard a translator so fierce yet bored at the same time until now. Milei, who's known for being very libertarian, went on to point out how free enterprise capitalism has lifted people out of poverty and criticized state interventionists, socialists, social justice warriors, and neo-Marxists. His remarks are a huge jab at the World Economic Forum's calls for a great reset of capitalism, its criticism of free markets, and its promotion of ESG, or environmental, social, and governance metrics, which many argue push socialist agendas. To add further insult to injury, Milei reportedly arrived in Switzerland on a commercial flight, which appears to be a major diss at the global elites coming in with their private jets. Milei's spokesman explained in a post that the president had traveled commercial to save what he calculated as over $300,000. Milei wasn't the only one to diss global elites at Davos. The president of the Heritage Foundation, a conservative DC-based think tank, likewise slammed the global elites straight to their faces in a discussion about a possible Republican administration.
And if I may, I will be candid and say that the agenda that every single member of the administration needs to have is to compile a list of everything that's ever been proposed at the World Economic Forum and object all of them wholesale. Well, it's laughable that you would, or anyone would describe Davos as protecting liberal democracy. That's your part of the problem. Political elites tell the average people on 3 or 4 or 5 issues that the reality is X, when in fact reality is Y.
Wow, this gives me Ricky Gervais vibes. Too bad he's not as funny, but it was a nice roast nonetheless. And compared to typical Davos talks, clips of people roasting Davos garner a lot more attention on the internet. Gotta love the internet. So let's talk about why some people have a problem with the WEF. Right after this quick coffee break. Oh, so what kind of coffee am I drinking? Why, of course, it's Days Coffee. And I want to tell you why I love this particular coffee so much. For one, it has very low acidity compared to most coffees. That makes it taste a lot better. It's not bitter like most coffees, and it's gentle on my tummy. It has only 15% of the caffeine of a regular coffee, which is good for reducing caffeine dependency, and I can also enjoy multiple cups of coffee a day. It's just the right amount of kick I need without jitters or a caffeine crash. So how does Days make this special coffee? Well, first, they collect only premium-grade coffee beans from Colombia, Guatemala, Brazil, and Ethiopia. Then they treat the beans with 50 enzymes and ferment them. It's a patented process developed by a former cancer researcher at Yale Medical School, along with a team of South Korean scientists. Another great thing about their fermentation process is that it completely gets rid of mycotoxins. Those are toxins produced by mold and fungi you might find in some of the cheaper brands of coffee beans. But you won't find them in Days. So believe me, Days coffee is very, very good. It's got notes of dark chocolate, butterscotch, brown sugar, and nuttiness. The beans are roasted in New York's Hudson Valley. So when you order Days coffee using my link below, you'll get a special discount. And once you order, they'll roast it right before they ship it to you, so it's just about as fresh as you can get by mail. So, click the link below to try it out. So as I was saying, why do people love roasting Davos elites in the World Economic Forum? What did the Davos elites do to create so much distrust? Well, aside from blatant hypocrisy, like talking about climate change while flying into Davos on private jets, and disconnected virtue signaling, this was really weird. People are wary of rich, powerful elites who think that they know what's best to solve the world's problems without sharing the same values as average people, or even having their consent in mind. Klaus Schwab fuels these concerns, especially when he hypes up how Davos elites have what it takes to determine the future.
The future is not just happening. The future is built by us, by a powerful community as you here in this room. We have the means to improve the state of the world.
The fact that he's so confident that elites can social engineer the world frightens a lot of people, and rightfully so. To illustrate why, let's not forget that the World Economic Forum featured an opinion piece back in 2016 by a member of the Danish Parliament with the headline, "Welcome to 2030. I own nothing, have no privacy, and life has never been better." And how could anyone forget this piece of work? I'm pretty sure people in 3500 BC had property and privacy. But hey, that's progress. Fantasizing about taking away the average person's private property turns a lot of people off, particularly if the people promoting it are those with tons of private property and wealth. Davos elites are fine with average people not owning anything, then it's not surprising that they're okay with changing people's lifestyles, including their diets.
My daughter, 24, inspired me and said, "Dad, how can you advocate for these zero-carbon value chains if you still eat meat?" And so I stopped eating meat. Now the math would say, well, you need to stop eating meat 11 years to compensate for a flight to Thailand. Yes, but if 1 billion people stop eating meat, I tell you it has a big impact.
Yes, stop eating meat, you destroyer of the planet. Eat creepy crawly bugs instead. After I'm done filming, I'm going to go eat 5 steaks just in opposition to that. And despite the forum's elites' lip service on things like gender equality, many fear that the World Economic Forum is promoting economic fascism through things like stakeholder capitalism and ESG, or at the very least crony capitalism on steroids. After all, you've got a bunch of powerful business people rubbing shoulders with politicians. You're telling me that Davos business elites wouldn't try to do anything shady? The prostitutes are a red flag. It's no wonder people shiver when they hear things like how Davos elites want to build a new world order. So whenever the World Economic Forum brings up technology that tracks data, such as microchips, carbon footprint trackers, and smart toilets, people are going to assume the worst of Davos elites' intentions, regardless of the context. They'll also assume the worst when Davos elites talk about things like taking advantage of the COVID pandemic to make radical changes for the better. But surely with this year's theme being rebuilding trust, Davos elites must have learned their lesson and now they have trust in the public, right? As if. More after the break. Welcome back. From reading and watching Davos talking points, you get the impression that Davos elites don't trust the public and are blaming the world's problems on ordinary people rather than, the elites themselves. But Davos elites have quite a lot of confidence in their ability to do what some would call top-down social engineering.
As trustees of the future, as leaders in government, business and society, we bear a particular responsibility to rebuild trust in how we assume our own role as trustees.
But as trustees of the future, Davos elites seem to believe that the solution to trust is by cracking down on what they see as disinformation and misinformation. That's the only way they can trust the public will make the correct choices. Which is why the World Economic Forum reported that misinformation and disinformation is the most severe short-term risk the world faces, especially with AI around. With war in Europe, war in the Middle East, extreme tensions around China and Taiwan, and international shipping lanes under siege, I would have said World War III, but hey, to each his own. The Forum's 2024 Global Risk Report warns that there is a risk that some governments will act too slowly, facing a trade-off between preventing misinformation and protecting free speech. Now, to its credit, the Forum also warns about how repressive governments could use enhanced regulatory control to erode human rights. But it seems that Davos elites are too eager to resort to government censorship to counter disinformation, as if disinformation was somehow a new thing. Hello? We're talking about the internet. The internet. The place where 4chan was created. People constantly spread disinformation. If you don't know that, I pity you. Seriously. Now, I'm not against fighting disinformation. I'm all for it, and do it myself. But not by censoring people, but speaking the truth. Davos elites think they should take it upon themselves to determine truth and enforce it with political power, even if it comes at the expense of freedom. For example, check this panelist out from 2022. She's the Australia E-Safety Commissioner.
I think we're going to have to think about a recalibration of a whole range of human rights that are playing out online, from freedom of speech to the freedom to, to be free from online violence.
This year's no different in the way elites look at freedom of speech. The European Commission Vice President for Values and Transparency spoke in a panel last week called Defending Truth and mentioned how Europe got big tech, including TikTok, under the commitment of its code of practice against disinformation. Wait, Australia has an e-safety commissioner, and Europe has a vice president for values and transparency? That doesn't sound dystopian at all. Never mind how social media platforms like TikTok continue to be cesspools of disinformation for very obvious political goals. She also mentioned getting ahead of disinformation by pre-bunking it, with the last resort being law enforcement, citing rising anti-Semitism. Now, this should worry you. After all, how do you know if government officials themselves or prestigious news agencies get all the facts right and present them honestly? Don't forget that government officials and news media outlets are just as capable of spreading disinformation as ordinary citizens. Look no further than how dozens of former intelligence officials claimed that the Hunter Biden laptop story was Russian disinformation, only for that to be proven false. The laptop story was real. With that in mind, it's so ironic to see former CNN host Brian Stelter present a 2023 forum discussion called The Clear and Present Danger of Disinformation. Even though he's the same guy who dismissed Hunter Biden's laptop story as just a right-wing media story, and at one point called it a manufactured crisis. And let's not forget how governments completely botched their responses to COVID-19 by presenting contradicting information and censored things that turned out to be true. This turned out to do far more damage than if governments had acted less like authoritarians in the first place. Given how much Davos elites preach about countering disinformation, it's ironic they're more than willing to turn a blind eye to the biggest spreader of disinformation, the Chinese Communist Party. If the World Economic Forum is afraid of disinformation, then why has it not named China as a major threat in its 2024 Global Risks Report? The only mention of China and disinformation in that report focuses on how China counters AI-generated content. It's almost as if the elites at Davos don't want to offend authoritarians who use rape as a form of torture because they want to make money off them. Either that or they just don't want to admit that perhaps they should worry about the global elites rather than, say, the average person. Given how elites don't seem to want to self-reflect, it's no wonder why it just feels so good to see Milei talk trash at them. Perhaps they need more blessings from Amazonian shamans to heal from those sick burns. The real question is why people give up their freedom to these kind of charismatic global elites. I have some thoughts about that, but YouTube would consider that too controversial, which is why I'm hiding that discussion in a video about Pikmin on my new show Deep Thoughts While Gaming. I'm just talking about video games, YouTube, not about overthrowing the elite. Check it out. And again, this episode is sponsored by Days Coffee. If you like coffee, try it out. It's great for you, and it helps the show. Link is below. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. Thanks for watching America Uncovered.